This episode is brought to you by Let's Productions. Follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn. See you there.
This happened. I'm just skeptical about the abduction part of the story. To that extent, it wasn't like a visceral reality experience. It wasn't like a true memory. And that's what I had trouble with for years and years and years. Certainly, I shared the experience with the rest of the guys, and they might take that as remembering a real experience, but it's not. The encounter is real. I know that.
I am a 20-year retiree from Majestic. First having been brought in 1986 under the auspices of the Conneticut majority. And specifically working for the Majestic 12, assigned to Project Aquarius. I suppose I'm more known for meeting a J-Rob and working at S4.
What's up, everyone? This is Arizona Gallegos, and you're listening to Alien Strand Podcast with Donald Ledesma. Check out my Facebook page at Arizona Secret Backyard. Give me a like, share, and follow. I'll see you there.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Alien Strand Podcast. I'm your host, Donald Ledesma, and welcome to today's show. Man, it's going to be another good one today. You know, I decided to throw this out today only on audio. Why? Because, you know, I like to go back to my roots, right? I like to do that every once in a while. Just get back to the roots and just kind of get back into it. Because, you know, I really like, telling stories and what a lot of things are about. Now, if you're just new to Alien Strand Podcast, well, welcome to Alien Strand Podcast and welcome to ufology, man. It's about learning and about and studying ufology and, you know, the things of the unknown, the spiritual aspect. We go into paranormal. We do all kinds of things. Bigfoot, you know, and if you can find us on Alien Strand Disclosure Project there on Facebook, or you can follow us on alienstrand.com. You can even follow us on asdp-ufo.com if you want to report a UFO, right? So, you know, and those platforms are there for you guys, so you can go check out our work and see what we're about and see what we do, right? So right now we are live on Spreaker. We are going to be on we are actually on 28 platforms. You know, we are on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Spotify, Google, Castbox, the iPhone one. You know, we're you can even ask Alexa. And she'll play some Alien Strand Podcast, right? And that's the best way to do it. You know, when you're just sitting in your kitchen, you got one of those Alexa players there. Just say, Alexa, play some Alien Strand Podcast, and she'll play it for you. You know, we're out there, man. We're out there all over the place. And, you know, we just want to thank everybody for listening to the show and watching us live most of the time. Today, we're not live on any video because I think you guys got tired of seeing my face already, right? So we'd rather just do it this way, just for today, right? So if you guys missed our last podcast, I hope you saw that with Miss June DeYoung. She came out and, we were able to talk to her a little bit about her psychic abilities, things that she was able to explain to us, how things happened to her. She had a couple of near-death experiences. She's been on Coast to Coast. She's been on a lot of shows, all Gaia shows. She's been, she even had her own UFO show. She came out on this show called Sightings back in, I believe, in the 90s or early 2000s. So, and she's an actress. She came out in a lot of films as well. So we were happy to have her on the show. If you missed it, just go back one on this one, and you'll see it right there. It'll say, Encounters with Miss June, and you can just watch that, or listen to it. There's an actual link there to our YouTube, so you can go to our YouTube page. And if you do watch any of our podcasts there on YouTube, just hit the live tab when you go to our YouTube. So search Alien Strand Podcast there on YouTube and just click the live section there, and then you'll see all the live podcasts, because I do presentations, I do video presentations, and I show pictures, photos of a lot of our guests that come on the show, right? And they it's good to go back and you could see exactly what happened to them at that time, right? Because the spiritual realm, ufology, to me, it ties together, right? And sometimes people are in tune, not just with one part of it, not just the supernatural world, but also the extraterrestrial world as well. We believe that they kind of flow in the same kind of dimensions, and they can be in the same dimensions at the same time, right? And that's, I guess, because the extraterrestrials are probably I hear they can jump up to 12 different dimensions, right? So why not jump into the spiritual world, right? Why not go into that part of it and just kind of, float around with them at the same time? So in other words, I believe that, maybe, this is just me personal, maybe in the spiritual world, realm, it's just maybe one dimension above us, right? To where they're able to manifest themselves, where we can see the actual apparitions, the ghost part of them, they're the shadow figures, things like that. Maybe if they're in different other dimensions, I believe we probably won't be able to see them as well, right? Because our eyes can only see in a third dimension world, really, in reality, right? And that's how we see everything. So maybe that's why the fourth dimension is probably a little bit closer to what we can see as far as us. Maybe some folks can see more. Hey, I don't know. I haven't found one yet, that can see, past our fourth dimension. But, hey, you never know. There might be somebody out there, right? But at the same time, we always looking for guests and looking for people. Now, if you want to be a guest on the show, give me a call at 361-245-8000. That's our hotline too. If you got an extraterrestrial story, something you want to get off your chest, you want to talk to me about any of our ASTP team, give us a holler and we'll be glad to talk to you. You don't have to be on the show, but if you want to get it off your chest and just kind of talk about it, we'll be there for you, right? Because that's what we're here. We're here for you. Also, I hope you caught our movie, The Middle. The first one, of course, I've been throwing it out for a year and a half now, a year actually, and then now we did The Middle 2, right? So that's out already. The only place you're going to find that is on Skylight 1 channel on Facebook. So go there. It's called Skylight 1. If you want to look for it on Google, it's called Skylight 1. You'll see The Middle 2 there. You can purchase it and watch it. I highly recommend you see part 1 before you see part 2. Now, The Middle part 1 is... I put it back up on YouTube, so you can watch The Middle part 1 there on YouTube for free. You don't have to pay for it. Go check it out, and give us a thumbs up, share it, and then go see our part 2. All the little bit helps us, to keep all this afloat, and it helps me make more films, right? Nobody's being a millionaire here. That ain't gonna happen. It's just that, we're just trying to get the information out to you guys, right? So, and that's the best way for us to do it right now until it comes out on Amazon Prime. Once it's on Prime, it's gonna blow up. I have a feeling it is. That film's gonna blow up. And, it might cost you a little more. It might cost you a little less. Hey, I don't know. They set the prices. I don't over there on Amazon. So, just thank you guys for listening today. There's a lot of things going on out there, right? Really. I don't know if you've been watching the news and all the things that go on out there in the background of, extraterrestrials, a lot of photos, a lot of videos. I've been seeing so many videos lately of these TR-3B, triangular looking craft. And I am I don't know, man. First, I used to think of it as an extraterrestrial vehicle. It was somebody else's, but the way it's shaped, and then the way our B-1 bomber is shaped, and the way, you know, we were, kind of constructing a lot of these crafts back in the day, even in the 40s and the 50s, they almost had that same look, right? Almost triangular shape looking. And now that I see these things, to me, it looks more like if it's probably one of ours, right? Or it's got to be one of ours, right? Or some kind of secret program that they have of these things. They've already figured out how to do, you know, how to jump in and out, and, you know, do the high speed with element 115 like Bob Lazar talked about, you know, Moscovium, like they call it in Russia. You know, why not have that capability of doing that kind of maneuvers and things, you know, because you see this thing floating across. It's got this big bubble in the center of a bright light, and then it just disappears within seconds, or it goes totally black, right? A friend of mine, she just sent me a story yesterday, and I believe it's on Gaia, I don't know, it's on YouTube, and it shows this woman that was sitting outside, right? And she was on a date with her boyfriend, and they had just finished eating dinner, and they went and sat outside on the porch and outside and back, and it was dark outside. They were looking at the stars, and all of a sudden they looked up. She looked up and said, "Do you see that?" And it was like, what? And she goes, "Look, the sky's blacked out right there." I mean, she said you could see all the stars, you could see everything, right? But only in that triangular area. She said it almost looked like a triangle, like a boomerang sort of looking thing. It was huge. She says it was the size of 2 or 3 football fields, right? And they both stood there and looked at it and like, what is that? You know, all you could see is the silhouette of this thing that was blocking out the stars. They said it was a clear night, looking at it, and you know, she says she just kept on looking straight up at it, and he says, "I'm going to go inside and get some water or whatever." And she said, "I just kept looking at it for, it felt like a minute or 2 minutes that I was sitting there just watching that." And then she says, when after that, I looked back down, I turned around, and he came back out the door, you know, out the back door, and he says, "Oh, there you are." And she's like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, there you are. I was looking for you all over the place." She goes, "I've been standing here the whole time." He goes, "No." He goes, "I've been looking for you all over the place. I was wondering where you went because the kids are here and I didn't want them to be by themselves. I thought you went to the store, right?" And she's like, "No, I haven't left anywhere. I've been here for about a minute." And he goes, "No, you've been gone 45 minutes. She goes, "No, I haven't." She goes, "Yes, you have." He says, "Check your watch." So lo and behold, she looks at her watch. She was gone 45 minutes, almost an hour. And she says, "Man, I felt like I was only standing there for just that 1 minute." So apparently, she claims that because you're looking at the missing time, right? The element's there already. So, and he says he went out into the woods in the general area looking for her, and he couldn't find her nowhere. That's why he figured she went to the store real quick or something, and he sat there with the kids until she got back. That was his thing, you know, of saying, okay, maybe you're right there or wherever. But anyway, he got so spooked about it because she's, you know, the way she was acting and what they saw. He says, "You know what? I'm out here. I can't do this." And then she said that the next day he called her and he says, "Now, dear John," you know, for her, dear Jane, actually. And he didn't want to see her anymore. He got spooked because of what happened, right? And these stories do happen to folks, right? And it's hard to explain, you know, what they go through, you know, and the trauma, right? And this is what Alien Strand Disclosure Project, and this is what we do for folks. We help people through that trauma. It can be post-traumatic stress. Yes, that's what it is. Because they don't understand exactly what happened to them. Then after a while, they start getting more effects of what happened to them. You know, it starts getting flashbacks of the possibility of maybe they were inside of a craft, or maybe they were getting, you know, things were happening to them while they were, you know, under this trance or hypnosis of some sort, right? That these extraterrestrials put you under every single time, right? You go into like a paralysis sort of state, right? And that's the hard part about what it is about actually having contact, right? And it's hard to explain that you've had contact. It's almost like a C4, right? But how do you explain that this happened? And the only reason that story came out for her was because she had a witness. Him, he was there. He stood there. He saw the whole thing, right? Except he didn't see her disappear because he walked away. Now, if he wouldn't have walked away, he would have probably been in the same situation she was. But people don't react the same way to an extraterrestrial event, right? Some people get spooked real easy. They get scared, right? And I don't know if you remember the Betty and Barney Hill. Everybody knows that story. 1961, out there, Connecticut. They did the same thing happened to them, it was. She took it as well, right? Her experience with the extraterrestrials were well in her psyche, right? In other words, it didn't really bother her that bad. Barney he got the worst of it, right? It scared the living crap out of him. And he was having a lot of post-traumatic stress about what happened to them both, right? His experience was fear of the understanding of not knowing exactly what happened to him. He was under some sort of a trance, right? She was in the middle, she says. She goes, I was still coherent. I was telling them jokes, and I was communicating with them back and forth. That's why she was able to draw that map, right? And because of what she saw on the wall of where they came from. Because she asked them, where are you from? And they pointed at the map, and she was able to draw it, right? And it was the constellation of the Pleiades. And that's where, she was able to map it out, and then it came out that yes, that's where that's where the map was from. She didn't know anything about constellations, right? So, in other words, what I'm trying to say is that some people take this post-traumatic stress hard, and some don't take it as hard as far as the extraterrestrial part, right? And I get that. If I've had folks that have talked to me personally, and it scared the living hell out of them. Some of them, it was passive. It wasn't as bad of an experience, right? So it's a little different for everyone, really, in reality, right? Of how these things happen to people, and why they happen to people. Nobody knows why, or why you're picked, really, in reality. Nobody knows why. Some people say, oh, it's because they're RH negative. Maybe not. It's not everybody's RH negative, and they don't always get RH negative people, because they do get males as well, right? And we all know that they abduct for the eggs and the sperm samples and things like that, so that way they can make more clones or more extraterrestrials, the little grays, because they can't multiply, right? They have no organs to do that with, so they use us. And what do we do here today now? Cloning, right? We can clone anything now, just about. So where did we learn that from? If you kind of think about it. They're building tissue. They can build an ear or a piece of a nose off of an animal now, right? Just by splitting the cells and adding them to the animal, right? And it grows an ear, and it grows, and then they put it on a human being. How is that possible, right? How did they learn that? Extraterrestrials, man, that's how they learn that. And they do the same thing to us. Does it make sense? Yes, to me it does. And that's the most difficult part of understanding extraterrestrial abduction and the things that happen to folks, right? And just because we're noticing these extraterrestrials, we think of them as, scary things. Some of them are not. And this is what I'm trying to bring across to you guys today, right? And I'm going to tell you this small little story that happened, and it kind of makes you wonder a little bit of what happens to people when they see these extraterrestrials, and how they react, and how you know, it's like they go into some kind of shock, right? And you know what and then how do it's just like, how are you supposed to react if you see something like that? And I don't know. It's hard to even think about when you see something like that, like a small extraterrestrial, or you see their red eyes and it's looking right back at you. You know, how do you understand that? It's a lot of us are thinking, well, it's just an animal in the brush, right? What could it be? So there's a story here. This happened in 1957, right? And this was in Old Saybrook, Connecticut. So this is a small little town, man. Literally a small little town. It has a little lighthouse. It's right by the coast. And, you know, it's right by this town called Essex, right? And it's the Old Saybrook is in the town of Middle Essex, the county of Connecticut, right? And it says here in the United States, the town is a part of the lower Connecticut River Valley of planning region. This is the population was about 10,481 in 2020 census, right? So not very many people in that general area, right? And, you know, which makes it a nice little town. Not very many people. So in other words, you know your neighbor, you know your neighbor's neighbor, and you know everybody. You know the store person or the person that works at whatever, Stop and Shop or whatever. You know, everybody knows everybody pretty much by name in a small town like that, right? And in this story, you know, it says that, you know, that there was an encounter there in 1957, right? And it was it tells you that it was recorded in 1957, right? And they said it was like a crowned cube that carried some kind of red energy nucleus that was floating there. And there was a retired teacher, Miss M. Stars, at the time, figured that they couldn't be more than 30 inches tall. It's not very tall, right? 30 inches? It's about, what, 2 feet? 2 feet and a few inches. And it says, and they were in a tiny UFO. Now, I don't know if you guys saw the videos that I put when we had me and Terry Lynch. There was a small UFO that was floating above the grass, maybe about as big as 2 to 3 feet big. And I was explaining how small this craft was, and then it just shot out as this person was walking up close to it. And it looked like a black diamond, almost like a head of a spear that was floating there. And when they walked up to it, they were able to video it, and it took off, right? But that was the other story. What I'm trying to kind of get to you guys here is that the UFO that they're talking about, she says these little guys were 30 inches tall, right? And so it was investigated by a deputy director. His name. Let's see, in the area for now, his name was Richard Hall, right? So it says on December 15th, 1957, resident of Old Saybrook, Connecticut, Miss Starr was a former professor at a graduate at Yale University. At her home, she decided to go to bed early, between 2 and 3 in the morning. Says she was awakened by a bright light entering her room. She looked out the window, and in the backyard, and saw what I thought was a plane crash, she says. But when I looked closer, I saw it was a shiny cigar-shaped object with square lights hanging directly above the rods, she says. And in the inside, I saw people in the object was hanging motionless, and they were about 3 meters from the building, she says. They were between the barn and the house. She says they were at the height of about 1.5 feet from the ground. This was 6 to 9 meters long, she says. It was dark gray or black. It had no wings, no tail, and no highlights. Though the illuminated sights, he says. He's talking about the craft here. Star says, she goes, I could see 2 figures. They were moving one to another. I noticed the object was tight and that people couldn't be more than a meter tall, she told researchers. She says the passengers raised their hands, which were not visible hands. The creature was dressed in a sort of expansive jackets, and their heads were strangely square and rectangular, with a red and orange color, with a bright red bulb, she says, in the middle. She says it looked like some kind of a helmet. His lower parts were not visible, she says. No chair or instrument could be inside. She says on this unknown device, she goes, the third creature appeared from somewhere on the left. The woman leaned on the window to get a better view. But then the sights went out, she says. The object's body illuminated even more, and then an antenna about 15 centimeters appeared on the top, which shook and glowed. The UFO plunged and made a ripple movement, repeating the contours of the gorge located near the house. Then it tilted abruptly, then disappeared at incredible speed in the complete silence of the sky. She goes, as most neighborhoods' homes were empty at the time of the year, she says, Miss Starr was the only witness to the strange incident. However, a few weeks before that, there was talk of some objects in that same district, right? So, in this story, she claims what she had seen in this area. It's like the houses are very spread apart. It almost looks like a community by the river or by the water, right? Of course, it has a lighthouse and very open area, which leaves a lot of room for an extraterrestrial craft to land or these little entities to get out and walk around. Now, she says that they were wearing some kind of a suit of some sort, right? Real dark color. And their heads were like a cube with a red light in this dead center, which was indicating that it was some sort of a helmet for them to breathe. And they just were floating around this object, walking around, which they probably noticed her, and that's why they turned around and they got in there and they took off. And it always happens that way. But why not be 1.5 feet tall or 2 feet tall? We see it on a lot of videos out there. We're always imagining these extraterrestrials to be about 4 feet tall, 3 to 4 feet tall, which is about the size of maybe a 9 or a 10-year-old, right? And that's around the size that we're mainly used to seeing. Now, the size she's talking about is probably about a 2-year-old size, right? Walking, which is not very tall at all. But the bodies are still visible and she could see them, right? So it kind of gives you a vision of, giving you some kind of a, some kind of a visionary thought to put it in your head of what exactly the size that she was seeing, right? And this was in 1957. This was before the Betty and Barney Hill abduction, right? 4 years before. Totally different kind of extraterrestrial than the Betty and Barney Hill. She says this was 2-3 o'clock in the morning when this happened. She saw the bright lights. That's what she thought it was a plane crash out there. I mean, as of you or me or anybody that would see something like that, of course we're going to go outside and investigate. you see some bright light coming through your window that's not supposed to be there, that you're not used to seeing, and is flashing through your window, you're going to go and investigate, right? Or go outside just to take a look. Now, mind you, 1957, they got telephones, yes. Cell phones, no. Cameras, yes. Not everybody, of course, back then had a camera with them or in the car or anything like that. It was simple days, what they call the good old days. And this is what that story, kind of implicates, that what happened to her, as strange as it was, they didn't bother her or try to take her or anything like that. It was just an encounter that she saw. And you don't hear too many of the stories of these little 1-footers or a 1.5 feet or 2 feet extraterrestrials very often. You do hear them, though. There's a few out there of them. And you think to yourself, how can something be that small? And you think to yourself, now if I was that small, everything would look huge and gigantic, right? And that's probably what it looks like to them. The story I talked about before this one, in a past podcast, the gentleman, that same thing, caught some extraterrestrials out, and when he walked up to it, it looked like a Tic Tac of some sort floating. He thought it was a fuel container, but with no legs on it. When he walked up to it, there was 2 extraterrestrials pulling plants up. Small ones, too, at that. And they told him they weren't going to hurt him. They just wanted to take some samples to their planet because they didn't have what we have here. And they couldn't breathe. He asked to go with them. They says, no, you can't. You won't be able to breathe where we're at. Which makes it difficult for them to breathe here, right? It's a totally different world, right? So in other words, just think about it this way. This is the most simplest way I can tell you. Pull a fish out of the water, right? He's not going to survive. You throw him back in the water, he's going to survive. That's the way they breathe. So it's the same implication of, you put this extraterrestrial on a different planet, they're going to have a hard time breathing here. Even though there might be some kind of oxygen, it might be just too hard for them. So they have to wear the helmets in order to breathe their own air, to walk around. What happens when if we walk to the moon? Gotta wear helmets. Once we go to Mars, gotta wear helmets. Same thing applies, right? So not every extraterrestrial can breathe on our planet, because their bodies are acclimated to their own oxygen, possibly, or less oxygen, right? So it might be heavier for them to breathe in our air. You have to think about these little small things in order to understand why that happens, why they were. Just because we can breathe here doesn't mean we can breathe anywhere else, right? Or these extraterrestrials can here. I've heard that a lot of these stories that I have told of these abductees and people, that it's very humid inside of these crafts. They come out with their hair soaking wet when they come back. Or they were like drenched in water because there's so much humidity inside of these crafts and it's hard for them to breathe, they say. So you see where I'm getting at here? It's hard to breathe inside of these ships from these gray aliens. Not all the grays are the same. You got to remember, there's many different species. And they come from different parts of the universe. So this is one story that probably remember, and you'll keep it with you for a little while, because it just gives you something to think about, right? When you're thinking about these extraterrestrials, right? And what happens to people during a CE2, CE3, a CE4 encounter, and a CE5, right? CE5 is when you go inside the craft, you communicate, and you're having communications back and forth with the extraterrestrial, right? What you're not supposed to do. Through almost any government, they don't want you doing that. So let me give you a little bit of UFO news, right? What's happened lately. This was 4 days ago. So this is from the Mint. It says, UFO sightings. Is there evidence to support theories? Former Pentagon officials revealed that. Investigations have revealed. Let's see what they have revealed. Physicist Sean Kirkpatrick shed light on the Pentagon efforts to demystify unidentified flying objects sightings, right? Now termed UAPs, until his departure in December. The former intelligence officer led All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office at the Pentagon, which was tasked by Congress to investigate this phenomenon, right? As Kirkpatrick, there are two types of people: those who legitimately have something to share, and those who prefer to go public, but not to go to the authorities with the detailed information. He mentioned that even though some people have come up with eyewitness accounts of something, it turned out to be something else. I had to get rid of a lot of information that those other people were sharing through second or third parties, because it all comes down to the same group of individuals. You know, now recirculating this story, and the story has been around for decades, he told the Scientific American. He said his team has both recent sightings by military personnel with historical records back till 1945. The aim is to recover any hidden government programs related to UAPs, despite through the investigations, including access to classified archives. Says there are no evidence of extraterrestrial technology or spacecraft. They have said they have not found any. Everything the people have pointed to we went and investigated and found no evidence to support that. Again, a lot of these things are real, or real state of art programs, it says. Not extraterrestrial, but it's completely understandable why someone who did not know that they would draw conclusions, he said. There's assumptions, right? Says he criticized the tendency to leap into extraterrestrial explanations for unidentified objects. The government, according to him, spends a lot of time and the effort developing advanced technologies for a variety of reasons. Here we go, right? So some of this is just people who have observed things or seen things or got access to things they shouldn't have, that they don't understand. And then they just become that they don't understand it, he says. They seem to leap into it, and it must be extraterrestrial, he added. So, what does this sound like to you, right? What this guy's saying? To me, it sounds like he's behind the veil, right? anything to discredit the UFO researcher out there, the real UFO researcher. Of course he's going to say the government found nothing out there. Everything that we're pointing to doesn't show anything. That it might be just CGI. You know, how do these people, to me, have the gall to do this, right? When we all know exactly what's happening, you know, you don't have to cover it up. We all know what's out there. But they have to. Hey, man, it's the formalities. That's the way it is in the industrial complex. You have to do this. Well, we don't know where that 21 billion went. Black money, you know, where did it go? But how did we get all this technology so fast, right? Now AI is taking over everything just about. And I really dislike it. I don't like the AI. This is me personally. Yes, it makes things easier. But at the same time, if you kind of think about it, it's taking a hold of you, really, in reality. Because now you're going to depend on it even more and more, right? What happens with drugs, right? You end up depending on it more and more to do everything for you, or to makes it simple, right? And I'm a firm believer, if you can't put your own creativity into whatever you're trying to do, even as a researcher or content creator or influencer or whatever of some sort, if you can't do it yourself and you have to have AI do it for you, then you're going to be obsolete. Because after the while, it's going to pick up your signatures, going to pick up your voice, it's going to pick up your face, and it's not going to be you anymore. It's going to be somebody else, and they're going to steal your thunder. And that is the truth. Think about that. That's coming. It already came to a lot of the actors because they've already scanned their faces, scanned their voices, everything. They don't need them anymore for a lot of these AI films that they're starting to do. It's total CGI. That's why they had a strike, right? So just think about what's happening out there. Don't embrace this way too much, because it might just nip you in the butt after a while, right? And that's exactly what's going to happen. I'm going to tell you that right now. So my best thing is to don't use it, man. I mean, just use your own creativity. You don't need that. Use your brain. That's why you have one. Be careful with that. And all I'm going to do in that situation, how to fix it, is unplug it. There you go. That's my fix. All right, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed today's podcast. You know, it was my pleasure to give you a lot of this amazing information. You know, I rambled a little bit at the end, but it's okay. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I have. Thank you for listening to me live. We are live right now on Spreaker. And, you know, I'm going to put this link. It says all my links on it, right? It says Donald Desmond's going to say all my links. And you just click that, and it's going to take you to every single one of my links, even the channel 1, all right? So, Skylight Channel 1. It's going to take you to that channel so you can watch the middle part 2. Hey, guys, do me a favor. Go to your Amazon Prime Video account, and just search the middle part 2 CE3. Just type that, the middle 2 part CE3. Just type it in. It's not there, but we're trying to give Amazon Prime a hint. Come on, let's get our film up there. That way you guys can watch it from home, enjoy it, and share it amongst your friends. But hope you guys enjoyed today's podcast. We are on 26 to 28 platforms. We are now on Patreon. So please go to our Patreon. If you look at all my links, everything is there. Even Patreon, everything's there. All the phone numbers, emails, everything's there if you want to get a hold of me. If you want to follow Alien Strand Disclosure Project, you can follow it there. And like I said, if you missed last few days podcast, go check it out with Miss June DeYoung. Has all her information on there as well. Go check her out, and then she'll help you out too, man. She helps a lot of people as well. So go check out that last podcast, and she's gonna be we're gonna be having about 2 or 3 more podcasts on Patreon. All right, so these are gonna be recorded podcasts. So this last one we had a lot of glitching. There was just too much electromagnetic fields that were around her at the time, so her phone just kept on just glitching out. And so we're going to go ahead and do a few more to get a lot of information, because she has a lot to give you guys. So don't forget, catch us on Patreon. Go look for it. Download the app. Look for Alien Strand Podcast everywhere. Go to YouTube, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can ask Alexa, play some Alien Strand Podcast, and she will. All right. But until then, you guys have yourselves a good day. Have yourselves a good evening. And have yourselves a good night.
What's up, guys? This is Mike Beavers from The Theory, and you are listening to Alien Strand Podcast, the dopest UFO alien podcast out there. And if you want to find out about me, just go on YouTube and search UFOs over UFO or The Theory with Mike Beavers. Stay tuned, guys.